Hello. Today I'm going to be drawing a flea beetle. This photo is by James Reben. These are really good images. I really like the view, and you can even see like the individual eye. It's a really good photo. I wanted to start off this video. Sorry if you hear a motorcycle in the background that's really loud. A guy keeps like going up and down the street, and it's like very loud. So I can't do anything about that. I'm really sorry. If it gets too bad, I may just have to stop making videos on this day, which is really annoying. Yeah, I'm working with multiple views of this flea beetle. Uh, you can't see it, but on the side, I have the anatomy or a side view of the anatomy of the flea beetle. I always highly recommend that you Google a photo of the anatomy of the given bug you're working with, because I feel like when I do that, I can get much better understanding. Because I feel like even when you try to, even when you have a really good photo like this, sometimes certain things get missed out, and I think that is the benefit of like an anatomy view, or some people may call it like a pinned view. Some people like pin insects for like anatomy purposes and to study them. And when they do that, you sometimes get the full top-down picture of them, but you wouldn't have them like standing like this. The other downside to like an anatomy view is they're dead. So I feel like their legs are not usually in a normal position they would be in. If you ever have seen dead insects, they kind of like curl up, like their legs kind of curl up. I'm not sure why. I think it has something to do with they don't have blood, but whatever fluid they have, I'm guessing it's related to that. So when I do these videos, I try to initially sum up the gesture of the insect. So either using straight lines, C curves, S curves, or some variation, ellipses, or perhaps some shape. Because many insects have very interesting leg shapes that come together to make up those parts. There are so many varieties that having a view of it, or like an anatomy view, could be extremely helpful to piece together even what we're not seeing. So I'm going to start off with the gesture, and I think first off I'm going to start with the head. And sorry, I'm using an app called Thumbtastic. I made it myself. It's free. It's really helpful to view photos to the side. That's why I made it originally. So I'm going to start with the head. There's a lot going on. It's always surprising how much you could find with a beetle. So we have that part. And the interesting thing here is it's an insect, 6 legs, has a head, thorax, and abdomen. And the interesting thing about beetles is how their shell really obscures. It does a really good job at obscuring the 3 major segments of the form. So, and you just heard the motorcycle. I'm really sorry about that. Yeah, not a lot I can do. But we have the head, then we have the thorax, then we have the abdomen, which is significantly longer. And I'm just summarizing them as ellipses. I kind of made that one a bit too merged. And I'm also trying to keep in mind the direction. Like, I think the direction should be a bit more down. Like, the abdomen connected to the thorax should be kind of went a little bit too far again. I think I was a little off. Let me try it one more time. Perhaps a bit too far. Yeah, I think like that. Man, and my microphone is picking up all of that motorcycle reverb. Oh boy. Okay, so I have the head, the thorax, the abdomen. Now I'm going to add the pilot holes for the legs. And the interesting thing is, like, the first two back legs, since it's a flea beetle, it has like really interesting back legs. I could only assume it has to do with like jumping, because I'm guessing, I don't know what flea beetles really do or what their purpose is, but I can only guess that they jump on certain animals or mammals or something like that. So when I do look at them, I realize like the back legs are always very positioned, well, just far in the back, and the other legs are a bit closer to the head. Yeah, really sorry about that. What a day for me to record, I'll tell you. Okay, so now I want to jump on over to the structure layer real quick. The reason why I want to do that is because I want to add the all I could assume, they look kind of like mandibles. They're right here, and it's an interesting form that I'm seeing. It kind of like hangs off a little bit, goes a bit like that, then wraps around that form, and then it has like two little, I'm not sure if it's a proboscis or something like that, I can only assume, and I'm just drawing a very small attachment place for it, and it's very weird. I'm really trying hard to make out how it goes. You know what, I think these forms are, I think these may be two separate forms, so I'm actually going to go back real quick, because it's kind of like that first form is it's like a perspective thing in the back. Then this one kind of like wraps around the form, or the ball of the form, kind of like that. And then you have like a very small thing kind of like that. And there's another one too that wraps around. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a proboscis or something like that. It's an interesting form, I'll give it that. So now I want to quickly add, like, it's a bit of like a, I always call it insect armor. I'm pretty, there's probably like an etymology name for it, but I want to add it because when I look at the head, I'm seeing like a shape that's very straight as it connects to the thorax. It's kind of like that. And then I want to draw the eye. The eye is really, really large. It's really like bulbing out. Like when you look at this photo, you see the eye, and it's just bulging out like crazy. So, and it takes up a good chunk of the head. I'm actually going to go to the gesture layer real quick, and I wanted to add pilot holes for the antenna. It's an insect that has two antennae. I'm not sure if all insects have two antennae. Guessing it depends. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an exception to everything. But when I look at the eye is interesting. Based on this perspective, it kind of looks more like that, although a bit more straight. It's kind of like a bean shape. Like I'm seeing like a bit of a folding as it wraps around that head form. It's really, really interesting. And it just takes up so much of that head as well. Kind of like that. I'm going to do it one more time and try to take up more of the head. Because another thing I didn't see immediately, there's like a separation right here. It kind of like goes down and kind of like that. And I'm pretty sure it's like some type of form that connects the antenna to the head, or perhaps adds a little extra layer of protection on top of it. I wanted to like include that form quickly because I realized it also kind of wraps around, because we're looking at a side view and it's very three-dimensional. Or perhaps I should have made it more like that. I'm drawing like right here, by the way. It's a very interesting connection that goes out just a little bit. Okay, back to the eye. Yeah, it's kind of like that. So now I'm going to go to the gesture and draw two gestural lines that summarize the antenna. And I'm ghosting from here to here, or yeah, pretty much that way. And because the antennae are very, very long, very interesting shapes too. Like sometimes the antennae just look the same, but in this one it kind of looks like a bunch of like triangular stacking cups with the end being a bit longer, but the initial part is really big. I will add that, but I'm just going to do the other gestural line. I think it's to about here, and I'm trying to do comparisons to this image because it's just a little bit past the separation, so it's a bit, actually it's probably about right here, maybe even down a little, no, that's about right. And this is like the back antenna. I was so close to hitting that point. I'm going to try it one more time. Closer. Kind of like that. Okay, so now I want to quickly add some more insect armor. And I'm going to add it to about this point right here. And I'm working on the thorax covering shell, which is a very interesting shape. I always think of crabs. I don't know why that immediately comes to mind, but I think of crabs whenever I see these individual segments. And then it like wraps around. Actually, no, it wraps around kind of like that, comes around and connects to there. And I'm also now seeing like a bit of a triangular shape right here. I'm not sure what it is. I think it just has to do with the way the skull is like connected, and kind of I'm seeing this interesting separation, or this interesting connecting part around the eye. It kind of like nestles the socket to everything and wraps around the socket form and connects to the rest of the head. Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm also seeing, I don't think I wrapped the shell around in a good way. Like over here it actually kind of bends out a little bit and then wraps around. And now I want to focus on the abdomen shell, which is a very interesting shape. I'm going to execute this in a couple lines, because based on the reference, we can kind of see a bit of the under, like the under stomach area, and I just realized I made that line a little bit too long. So it comes up and connects to that thorax, and then this part, like this part right here, connects to there. So all these parts like cover the next part really well. Kind of like that. Now that I look at it more, I'm seeing like some banding on the underside of the stomach. Like if you look at it really closely, they're kind of like these wrapping around bands. Then they're a bit obscured. And I'm seeing that for the first couple. I bet it's very continuous throughout. And I don't like to make stuff up when I see the insect, but I could assume that if we have that, it's probably a bit continuous. Maybe that is a bad assumption on my part. Well, it's kind of like I see the first three, then it kind of just gets long, so it may be a bit obscured by the leg as it goes. I mean, it's still there's still got to be sections as it goes on. Okay, so now I want to focus on the antenna. And I'm going to focus on the back one first. I'm kind of making some inferences. Well, one based on this one. I mean, both antennae are the same, so we can only assume that the end cap is like this triangular bit. It's a little longer. It's very thin. I think I made that way too thick. Yeah, I still made that extremely thick. It's like a triangle that is thinner near the end, kind of goes like that. Although mine is way longer than it probably should have been. So then the interesting thing is with this, I'm seeing like a really initial large part. And now that I look closer at this antenna, I think it should have been bending down a little bit more. Like I made it way too curved. But I'm gonna roll with it. Well, you know what? No. I am not gonna roll with it. I'm gonna quickly erase and try that one again. Oops. Yeah, it's really disappointing. Maybe I should be spending more time looking at the antenna, because it's just very down. I think that's too far down. No, you know what, that sounds... No, it is way too far down. I think about there is right. So I'm going to actually start with the farther one, as I said before. It's an interesting bean-like shape. It's more oval shaped, to be honest. And as we go, it's like all of these cups that like end fatter and start thinner. And it just continues throughout. Like when I look at looking at this image, it looks like a bit of an optical illusion that like that segment looks larger, but since I have this other reference here, I can clearly tell that they're all about equally the same. I mean, some look a little bit different. I bet there's always some variation, but I think it is a little bit safe to assume that they start out tapering and kind of end a bit fatter as they connect to one another. perhaps I should have counted out how many there were. Because when I look at this view, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. Well, it would really be 9 of the same size segment, 1 of the long, 1 of the initial. So it would be about 9. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, there's no way I'm going to be able to summarize all of those. So I'll try to make it 9. 4, 5, 6, 6, 7, 8. About 9. A bit larger than I wanted it to be. But oh well. So now this one, I'm going to get that initial sausage-like shape. Or bean. I think I made it a bit too long. Yeah, way too big. Then the end cap, which is a bit triangular-like. Kind of like that. Now I have to do 9 of these things. And some of them are much different shaped. Like, it's kind of interesting. It seems like the first 2 are more like ball-shaped. But they're like minuscule as they connect to that form. It's like that one's even smaller. Then we're going to have about 7 more segments, which is going to be a bit difficult to fit it in. Four, 5, 6. I'm making that one a bit longer than I wanted to. I'm trying to adhere to this thing I set about like that. So, okay, we covered that, which means I probably should have had 2 small dots for that one. Oh well. I'm gonna roll with it. Okay, so now on to the legs. So it has a really significantly large back leg, and it's kind of hard to see. Now that I look closer, I'm beginning to think perhaps I should have made the thorax a bit more like that, and I think making it like that ball that I did may have been a bit difficult to summarize it all, because it's like the legs are like not all coming from here, they're like way farther back. It's like such a trick where the abdomen is. So darn. And I hate to do that because it's like the shell makes it seem like where the shell segments are, that's where the thorax would be, even though like I'm looking at a different anatomy picture and it's clearly different. Oh, what a trick. So looking at our flea beetle, I'm actually going to look at another picture of a flea beetle, kind of see where the leg attachments are. It's really difficult, really annoying. Yeah, well, all I know is that probably the gesture I drew for the thorax should have been a bit more like that, and I should have just ignored thinking the shell separations were separating the abdomen and thorax. Because when I do look at this picture again, it's clear that like there's the leg is like starting way back further, and the other leg is somewhere over there, but the other 2 legs are a bit where I made that initial ball-like shape. So Good thing that I'm working in non-traditional methods, because I could easily go back and try to do those legs again. Okay. So, what do we learn? Take a little bit more time to try to look at the initial anatomy. It's really hard to think about when you take the image at face value. So, what am I seeing initially? Well, I'm seeing initial sausage bean-like shapes. When I see the back leg first, it's really big. It's kind of like, well, maybe not that large. I think I made that a little bit too big. Let me try that one more time. And perhaps I made the pilot hole a little bit too large, so I should have made that a bit smaller. I think that's still too big, so I'm going to try to summarize it one more time. Perhaps that side should have been a bit straighter. So we have that, and it's interesting because when I look at the anatomy of the leg parts, it seems like they're always in 3 distinct parts. It's a bit obscured, but there's gotta be like this thinner matchstick shape through the leg as well, and it's just like a bit obscured even though it's connected to it. Because I am seeing the end part, like it has, what I can tell, it has like 2 triangle shapes. So that means probably like right here there's a triangle shape, and right here there's a triangle shape. Then it has like the last one that's like a hook. That's like those 2 hooks, which I can only assume is to grasp plants or mammal hair or something like that. Now that I look at this leg here, a little bit hard to see, but it is another one of those bean shapes that kind of like goes a bit like that, or maybe it should have been even a bit further, kind of like that. Then the shape that connects to that leg is like another bean, kind of like that. Then we have 2 of the stacking cut like shapes. I always think like the red solo cups when I see those legs, and they connect to one another. And then the last part is last part's kind of like the same thing but curved. I'm seeing like 2 of the triangle shapes, which I can only assume to be the claws, so maybe when I've done that I should have made it more kind of like that and that. No, like one part needs to be a bit more curved. Yeah, I think kind of like that. Then I'm seeing the hooks. For the front leg, I think it's really obscured, but I can tell from this one there's got to be like that initial. Oh, I can kind of see it. It's a bit difficult, and I think I should have made that gestural leg a little bit further back. It's kind of like that. Then the leg is kind of making an interesting. It's kind of hard to see based on the perspective, but I think it's kind of like that a little bit, even though like my logic would say it should be a bit longer. I think it's kind of like that. Then, well, actually, you know what? Yeah, no, it kind of goes like, it's kind of curving like that way, actually. The longer that I look at it, kind of like that. Then I'm seeing like the cup-like shape kind of make an interesting twisting turn as it connects. Then it connects, then it goes like the other way a bit. Then we have like a really small tapering bean-like shape. Kind of like that. Then you have like the two little claws at the end. The other leg that I can kind of see a portion of is like this leg here. So what I could assume, or what we can infer, is that we could see like the matchstick-like part extending. And now that I look at it, I should have made that leg a bit further back and overlapping this leg, which is really frustrating to me that I messed that up. I'm gonna undo that leg real quick and try to think of it. Because darn, it should really be overlapping that leg. So I think it's actually more like that. Sorry for leading you astray with that leg, but it's like that again. Well, it should be a bit longer. Kind of like that. Kind of like that. Kind of like that. Then you have the weird shape at the end. Then you have like the two little hook-like things. Okay, so now I can fit in that other shape. It's a bit obscured, and like we're just seeing like the matchstick-like part. It's got to be connecting to the other side. And I want to say we're seeing like a portion of that triangle shape again and again, and there's got to be the claws at the end of those. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing. You know what, as a bonus to this episode of Flea Beetles, I'm going to see if I can like try to draw this one real fast. Excuse me. Because I want to give you something else too. I think it's worth the time. So I'm happy if you stick around for this as well. And I think it'll give me another interesting lesson. You know, a 2-for-1 in this video. Maybe I could talk about insect scale. Maybe I'll do that in another video. Okay, so now that I have been through... Oh, you know what? One last thing. I see this part here, and there's like a little bit of a hang-off. So I'm beginning to think that's like a continuation of our beetle friend here, and I should have drawn that bit. I'm not sure what part it serves, but it could be where it disposes waste. I don't know. It's hard for me to say. It could just be the end of the beetle. So... Oh, okay. You know what? One other thing. I'm seeing like a interesting separation line as the beetle shell kind of like curves. Like it kind of like flows a pattern kind of like that. If you see like this indentation, it's kind of like various outward curvings of the beetle shell. But okay, I'm gonna start working on this beetle. So this one's interesting because now that I can kind of apply some of my previous knowledge of our guy, and I think I have a little bit of a better understanding, I can draw the head. And all I could assume is I underestimated where the thorax would be. So it's a bit here. Oh, actually, I think it should be way larger. No. Not that big. Kind of big. Kind of like that. That's a bit too big. Yeah, I think like that. And now from my previous knowledge, I know that the two back legs are the pilot holes for that on the thorax are much farther back. Actually, wait, I think I'm kind of making the same mistake again. So let me correct myself. I'm sorry that I'm doing this. I think that back portion should have been a little bit longer. Perhaps a bit like that. And when we have those back legs, it's kind of like that, and like that. And I think the back leg portions are much larger. So I'm beginning to think that maybe it's beneficial for me to draw the legs first, because I feel like when I add this shell, I kind of obscure a lot of stuff in the demonstration. So I'll have to make a mental note to try to draw all of the attachment parts first before I add on the shell, which I think makes sense because I feel like the shell is more, like, it serves a purpose as it being insect armor, but I think it kind of does a lot of obscuring that may not be the best. But hey, learn some. I mean, I'm learning a lot myself, but oh well. Okay, so we have those legs, and we have those two, those two. So the interesting thing is, it's a bit obscured by the shell, but I think we could kind of like safely assume that it's a bit like that. And I think I made those pilot holes a bit too large. But oh well. I think it works if it's a bit obscured. But I'm thinking kind of like that. And I'll adhere to what I have set. I underestimate it. Try that one more time. Not perfect, but I think it works. So now I want to do the smaller legs, which actually I'm beginning to think that those two maybe should have even been a bit, just a tad bit above the midway point. I'm not seeing all of the leg connections, or no, I kind of am. It's much thinner. Then we have a smaller shape, which I could assume is that matched stick-like shape, and it kind of gets very thin as it goes up. Kind of like that. It's obscured there, but I can kind of tell here we have like two cup shapes. Or like, they start out. They start out like a triangle and kind of taper their way. Then I could assume there's that claw section, but it's just a bit obscured based on the top-down view of our flea beetle here. The next one is also a bit obscured, but I'm going to infer that it had two tapering triangles that connect to one another. Then it's got to have the claw-like thing, which is a bit difficult to see, even though in this case there were like two triangles. Then I'm guessing, like, in this case, when I saw those like two triangular like shaped things before the claws, like, it's got to be there, but they're probably just like a bit obscured by that leg, which is interesting because I just screwed up that leg because it should have been more behind. So let me redo that leg. Oh, how annoying. I did it throughout the entire leg. Okay, I'm just gonna roll with it. I'm beginning to see that Oh, okay, look, the angle. So I tried to make these two even, but now that I look at it, it should have been more kind of like coming out a bit like that. Or it should have been up a little bit higher, because now that I look closer at it, it's kind of like that. It's not perfectly parallel. Oops. Oh well. Very frustrating. Well, you know what? I'll spend 2 seconds to try to undo my mistake, which is extremely hard to do. Well, not that hard, but just annoying to do. There's a like those legs are continuing as they go, but it's just very obscured. We can't really tell, but it's got to be connecting in some way. But okay, I'm just gonna assume I messed up that leg. But now we have the two front legs, which are even smaller. And now that I look at it again, I should have made those two pilot holes a lot smaller. So I'm going to quickly erase them again. To do that. I think about that size is good. So we have a shape kind of like that. And most of the leg is obscured, even though I could see like a very small portion of it kind of like that. Then we have like, we're going to have those triangular like things, but more obscuring, and we can just see like one portion of the claw. And on this other side, it's interesting because it kind of goes out a bit further. Kind of like that. Then we could see a good portion of like that matchstick segment, what I like to call it, to go like that. And we could see a couple of those triangle shapes as it goes. Not all of them, like the first one is a bit obscured, but I feel like we could see the second one. Okay. So at this point, I want to add the bulging eyes. Well, actually, you know what? First, I'm going to add this structural form. It kind of like sticks out a bit. It's kind of like, I don't know why, but I'm thinking like, well, I don't know how to describe it. So it looks flat just based on our perspective. I'm pretty sure it's not like that. But I think it's important because one, it has the antenna on it, and two, it kind of like wraps around the bulbous eyes when you look at them. Like the eyes in this case, based on this perspective, it's kind of like that. Kind of like that. Should have been more round. As it wraps around, the gestural lines are a bit like that. Maybe that's a bit too far. Kind of like that. Well, kind of like that. And now I want to add, well, you know what? I want to think about the forms, and now that I think, or the shell, and it's really interesting that I look at it again, because it's like, it's clear that the shell segments take up, like, they cover a lot more room than how I would think it's structured, which is kind of a bit of a mistake I made in the drawing over there. Because it's like the initial shape, like, it looks like it just ever so slightly goes above the eyes before it connects. And the part here, I'm kind of seeing this interesting separation that like it goes far back enough. Like it's pretty much like at this point, if you look like right here is like this shell, like there's this like triangular like separation between the two shells, which I can only assume this beetle could like fly or kind of glide in some way. And then it's like the shapes kind of have a bit of a overhang that connects to the face over here kind of like that. Kind of like that. Perhaps I made it a bit too large, but yeah, perhaps I made the shell part a little bit too large. No, I think I did. I see my mistake. Oh yeah, I definitely. I'm sorry. I'm getting a bit tired. So actually, the shell thing kind of like goes back to the two legs, like about right here actually, and then that shell kind of like goes out a little bit much, or a little bit, kind of like to there, or kind of like there, and there. And then the interesting thing here is we can kind of see the separation of the shells as they come around and connect over to that part and over to that part. You know what? I think I should have made it a bit closer because I think I made it obscuring these two legs. So I'm going to make it adhere. I'm going to draw the boundary line. I'm going to keep it within this, within the abdomen ball I drew to about here. That's what I should have done. Like to there. And there. A bit longer than I hoped. A bit longer. I overestimated that ball shape for the abdomen. But oh well. I'll just learn from my mistakes. So now I'm going to work on the antenna, and I could see that there's like this initial bean shape that connects to both that kind of like tapers out a little bit. Or it's like bigger on the end and tapers out. Then we have all of those cup-like stacking things. I see, well obviously there's like the triangular end piece. Then we have all of these stacking cups. Okay, now I want to do that thin part over here, kind of like that. Then we have, well, I should focus on the stacking cups. I'm actually going to work from the start of the antenna. I'm probably adding way too many of these stacking cup shapes. There should be, I think, as I said before, 9, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm definitely gonna, I probably made the antenna a bit too long. So I'm just gonna try to brush over my mistake. But I will work on getting better at counting those individual segments and trying to fit it in. Okay, well, a bit longer than I wanted it to be. Should have been much, much smaller, or like stubby. A bit frustrating, but I will work on it as I go. Perhaps I should have done a couple initial sketches as I'm trying to fit a lot in. Or perhaps it's a bit of a perspective thing with this image, in which the ball is under here because I'm looking at it from the top view. It kind of overhangs it a little bit. Well, I'll be covering many more beetles, as there are a ton of beetles in the world. But thank you for listening to me throughout this video. If you like my channel content, please subscribe to my channel. If you like this video, please like it. If you have a question, please ask in the comments. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Bye.